Welcome back to Fresh Outlook. Let's run through some of the attention-getting stories from the past week with our star guest panel, the Ebru think tank, Jackie Guzda, media analyst, Dr. Bart Rossi, coverman and psychologist, and Dr. Alan Sanders, political science professor and former Times journalist. Let's talk about Hillary. Yes. I know you don't like Hillary personally, Alan, but let's talk about her use of personal emails.
Well, this is a very black stain on her. It raises some questions that people have always had about the Clintons. How devious, how secretive are they really? And this brings this back to the fore. I would say this, however, more broadly speaking, how many other officials have done the same thing? And
probably few.
And so while we're looking at this issue, we should take a look. If she is indeed unique in that situation, then yes, it's a big deal.
And Alan, we know exactly why she did this. She wanted to write what she wanted to write, talk to whom she wanted to talk to, without the scrutiny of the State Department looking over her shoulder.
Right.
She's a big fat liar, just like her husband. Do you agree?
Well, she's a big exaggerator, just like her father. Just like not her father. I'm sorry, like her husband.
Well, he does look older these days.
Her husband.
Jackie, I know politically you might love the woman. I admire anybody. If she was the first woman president, I think that'd be great. But you can't just be elected because she's the first woman. She's got to earn it. This is a huge, huge scandal.
I don't think this is a huge scandal.
Okay, because people don't care. They're like your students. They're like, what? Email?
No, that's not the reason. The reason is Colin Powell did the same thing when he was Secretary of State.
Is that true?
Yeah. Other people.
Okay, because I don't want you being like Bill O'Reilly here in Lyon.
Oh, no,
okay,
no.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. If Colin Powell did the same thing?
Much taller. Yeah, he did the same thing. It's going to come out that more and more people, and we're talking about...
That's what we need. If everybody does it, it's not really a crime. It's a mistake.
We're talking a few years back, and email was not in use as much, 10 years back as it is now. And I think more and more people are it's going to be exposed that people were using their personal email accounts.
I think even Rick Scott used it in Florida as governor. So I think the more and more people are going to come forward indicating they use private emails. But I don't think it's a big deal either. I think that it shows something about her judgment, but she's probably going to say, this helped me. It made me feel more secure, and I could breathe, and I didn't have the government perhaps looking into my email accounts. I didn't have Republicans going into my email account. She'll probably get away with it. And I do think that you're right. I think Hillary has a personality, and there's some good sides, some bad sides, some issues with her. But everybody's got those sides, and I think she's going to come out a winner because overall, I do think she has a winning personality.
Well, I was going to say, Alan, Bart, some of us have more bad sides than others, right? So like more
and from a political point of view, it's good for her that it came out now.
That's how I felt about it. That's what I said on Facebook. Too bad it happened now. Why can't it happen once she's got the nomination? Okay, Alan, next subject is Harrison Ford's plane. He's usually flying fighter jets, at least in the movies. He is also a licensed pilot. He likes to fly vintage aircraft. That can be dangerous. It proved to be dangerous, but Han Solo, his character from Star Wars, pulled it off. What's your reaction to this?
Well, this is when reality matches the movies, I think, and lucky for him, he proved to be a fantastic pilot and a resilient pilot, and he looks like he will emerge reasonably safely from it. And so sometimes reality does really match the movies.
Exactly, I agree.
Well, look, this is the second time that he's gone down in a crash and left it alive. How many people can say that they did that? I mean, he's been a pilot since the 1960s. He knows what he's doing. He saved a woman in Colorado who was stuck up in the woods and nobody could help her. And he landed his plane and came out. And she said, oh my God, all of a sudden I see Indiana Jones coming to save me.
Wow.
So, he seems like he knows what he's doing. God bless him.
Now I got to fact check you here, just like Bill O'Reilly. That almost sounds untrue, but that's true.
I know it sounds untrue. That's why this is so interesting.
Okay, stranger than fiction, if you will. Bart, what's your take?
I think he's a great guy. I think he's supposedly a wonderful pilot. He's got a lot of depth, a lot of experience, and it happened. But for me, it brings up this whole thing about professionals not really, flying planes and people, small aircraft or old aircraft. I have issues with that. But in this case, he was a guy who really did know what he was doing, and he had a tough day.
And apparently he was heroic in his actions where he tried to avoid houses as well when he crash landed it. So hoorah for him. Public schools add 2 more holidays to the school calendar, one observing the Eid and another one observing another Muslim holiday. And Alan, I think it's about time.
Yes, I agree. It brings Islam into the mainstream. It brings us into a more tolerant society. It's more inclusive, and I think inclusivity is certainly something that we need to work on in the United States. The world needs to work on it, and it's a wonderful thing that Mayor de Blasio has taken the lead on this.
Agreed.
Sure. I mean, when I was a kid in Catholic school, I tried to convince the nuns to give us the Jewish holidays off. So I think this is great. I totally agree.
I think we're going down the right road, and I think for most folks under 40, it's not even a big deal. For folks over 40, especially older people, they have issues with Muslim holidays and immigrants and a lot of other people. But this is the right way to go. Make it open for everyone.
I don't think a lot of people, like you said, older people, realize how many followers of Islam are in New York City. When I taught at St. John's University, routinely I would allow students to leave class for prayer break and so forth. So sure. It is part of our culture. It's glad to see it officially recognized by Mayor de Blasio there. I rarely agree with him. I agree with him less than Hillary, so I agree with him here. That's a shock. Okay, New York City ends its cell phone ban in public schools. This is kind of why I hate school, always hated schools, because something common sense. Let your kid have a phone. Why not?
It's okay to have a kid or child or student, anybody have a phone. The question is, when do they use it? And if you're a professor, you will find that cell phones are the scourge of academia because students can't resist. And so while it's okay perhaps to lift a ban, there needs to be a corresponding rule that you don't use them. You turn them off, you leave them in your pocket or in your purse or underneath your books, and you use them only when it's appropriate to use them.
Well, I've got to say something good about cell phones is that in a classroom now, I don't have to take them to a computer lab. I just say, take out your cell phones, let's fact check that, and they do. But I understand your frustration there. There's nothing worse than saying 5 times, you're texting, aren't you, Sabrina? You know, and then Sabrina does it on the 6th time.
Literally, all your students will be sitting there like this in class.
Oh, absolutely. And you can usually see and tell who's doing it because many students think you can't see when you're standing in front of the room. I've got news for them. You can actually see an awful lot.
Barb, what's your take on this?
I agree with the frustration level. I understand that, but I do think it's the right move, and I think we need to deal with our own behavior when it comes to cell phones. We have to learn to do that.
Yeah, we all have to control ourselves, you know, not bring it to the dinner table, not bring it to the classroom. It is a big distraction. Jodi Arias, she was convicted of killing her one-time boyfriend, nearly cutting his head off. A brutal crime. She was convicted. The first jury was deadlocked on whether she should be put to death. The second jury is also deadlocked on whether she should be put to death. Apparently she won't be put to death. I guess it depends on where you stand on the death penalty. Alan, this country seems reluctant to kill women, particularly white women.
Well, look, it's a check and balance. That's why we have the jury system. That's why in many jurisdictions you still need a unanimous verdict, particularly when you're dealing with the death penalty. And when you've got a lone juror that holds out, that's meant to be part of the system. I mean, check and balances means that someone, some institution can block what someone else or some other institution wishes to do. And that's been really the standard of liberty for us, the fact that you can have checks and balances. So while we might disagree, while people might be very upset, nonetheless, she was found guilty. She is going to be punished. And we have to live with the fact that we have a jury system that's a check and balance.
I agree. Let her rot in jail. I don't care. You don't have to kill him. Just let him rot in jail.
Oh, but look, I don't agree with the death penalty and all. The reason is I don't believe that the government should be the Christ crucifier that say, yeah, let him live or let him die. That's not their role. I'm more of a Republican in that sense.
Well, it's kind of a contradiction where you say you can't kill, and if you kill, we're going to kill you.
Exactly. And think about all those people that were on death row that were exonerated later on. There are people who have been killed who were innocent and it was found out later.
But here's the money question, of course, Bart, is if it's your loved one who was murdered, you want that person to pay the price. The loved ones of that man who had his head nearly cut off are devastated by the fact that the state won't kill this woman who is so clearly guilty.
I think that's a good point. But I think we can get past that. I like what Alan said. Even though it was an 11-1 decision by the jury, there's one person who rebelled against it. That's our jury system. And I think that we know at this point in time that the death penalty is not a deterrent. It has nothing to do with making things better going forward.
Is it cathartic for the family members who are left after their loved one has been murdered?
I actually don't think so. I think that you'll find just as many folks will tell you, I'd like to see him go to jail, let him remain in jail, and that's okay with me. I can deal with that.
One other thought on this: when I've interviewed people who have suffered grievously, a child hit by a train or somebody's head cut off, a peace almost falls over them. They become the most gentle, tranquil people, so understanding and so good-hearted. From a psychological standpoint, why do people sometimes become so compassionate and understanding when they've suffered so grievously?
Because it becomes a problem of living, as some famous psychologists have said. And what happens is you never get past this. It's not something you could ever really deal with. You just have to cope with it every day. And that's why this coping results in that behavior.
Okay. And we have one more topic to get to, which is the queen of IRS fraud. Okay, and we're not going to talk about that, but we'll show you a little video as we say goodbye. It was a woman who was flaunting the fact that she couldn't be caught by the IRS, but guess what? She was caught, and guess what? She's been sentenced to 21 years behind bars for the second time. I'm Logan Crawford. That's it for this edition of Fresh Outlook, Ebru's TV talk show that does what else but help you keep your outlook fresh and informed. Thank you, Alan Sanders, Jackie Guzda, and Dr. Bart Rossi, superstar. See you next week, folks.